We're going to be talking about cybercrime today. A couple of hard lessons to be learned from the experience of a local celebrity chef who fell prey to hackers. But I'm really grateful to him for being willing to talk about it, and to Wendy for helping find guests who can elaborate on what could be done differently to help protect ourselves in these kind of cases.
It began when a celebrity chef, a local celebrity chef, got a DM on Instagram from a friend asking if he'd sign up for his new online store. And that's how the hackers got into the chef's Instagram account and began playing havoc with both his life and his livelihood. So today that chef will tell us his story, and then we'll have a cyber crime expert shedding light on how we can protect our accounts from scammers and what rights and recourse someone in that chef's position has after the hack has been successful. So let's get into it. The chef is I'm never quite sure how to pronounce his name. Can you're good at these things? Is it
Drum roll, please,
Yes.
for Peter Goff Wood, MasterChef
Goff.
SA Judge.
Okay. All right.
Peter, always lovely to have you with
Thank
us.
you, Pippa.
Welcome.
Yeah, always great to speak to you, Pippa, and good afternoon, Wendy.
Thank you, Pete.
Before we dive into Pete's
Yes.
story, Wendy, do you want to just tell us a little bit more about the sort of background of what happened?
Okay, so about a year ago, Pete's social media platforms were hacked. He tried multiple ways of reclaiming his accounts and the audiences that go along with them unsuccessfully. So he lost 14,000 followers on Instagram, that address being at PeteGW. And all his attempts to get help from Instagram just came to dead ends. Even asking his followers to report the hackers was unsuccessful because the hacker managed to change the details of the two-step authentication process, which made it impossible to close the account or in any way reset those all-important sign-in details.
Okay, so we'll talk in detail with Pete about how they did all of that. But Wendy, do you have a sense of why they did it? What was their intention?
Yes, so it's happened to a lot of high-profile people here and abroad, and so they send bogus messages in the personality's name, trying to get followers to lend them money, buy into some harebrained Bitcoin scheme, donate to something. Basically to use the goodwill that the personality has and to get their followers to essentially send money the hacker's way, the fraudster's way.
Thinking that they're sending it to Pete when in fact it was not Pete. Okay, so Pete, I'm really sorry that this has happened to you as a starting point, but thank you very much for being willing to talk about it publicly so that others can be warned of the risks. Take us back to, it was, I believe, February, was it this year or last year when this all began?
It was last year, February
Yep.
last year it began. A mate of mine who has quite a cool sort of braai personality, and he's forever testing charcoal and different braai grids and bits and pieces. And I got a DM from him saying that he was starting up a new online braai store. Would I be interested in signing up? So I thought, he's a mate of mine. It's braai is my wheelhouse. I'd
Yep.
certainly tap into it. This, unbeknownst to me, his account had also been hacked, and I was sent a code via WhatsApp of which to click onto in order to sign up for the bogus braai store.
The authentication.
And that's how they garnered my information, and it happened within 10 to 15 minutes.
Sure. I mean,
By the time-
what made you realize that something was not as it seemed? How quickly
Well,
were you to talk?
I was then alerted just by Instagram asking about my sign-in. Someone was signing in on my account. Was it me? And by the time I went on to check whether or not to stop it, they'd already got in so far as to remove my details from the contact sign-in and replaced it with their own. So that the whole two-tier authentication system that they use was useless, because what they do is they say, okay, well, send us your phone number or your email address, and then we will send a 4-digit code for you to then have access to your account. Because the hackers already changed those details on my account, those 4-digit codes went to them. So I was never able to get back into my own account just to close it down or to report it. I reported it on countless occasions to Instagram, but as far as they were concerned, there was no illegal activity, because every time they sent confirmation, it went to the new hacker's address, and they confirmed that they were in fact Pete Goffwood. And as far as Instagram were concerned, there was no messages of violence, hate speech, pornography, or anything along those lines, which are their guidelines. So they could see no reason to shut the site down.
Sure.
So no guidelines around this very widespread problem. It would have seemed.
None at all.
It would
And
appear.
that was one of and that's one of the frustrations, is that when you go into the kind of back of the house, and you start to ferret around, and they send you from one thing to another because you're basically dealt with by bots.
Yes.
They have a certain set of criteria they can deal with, and if your problem falls outside of those criteria, you just keep going round and round in circles, being sent backwards and forwards, because there's no one you can physically contact or speak to
explain
in
what
order
happened.
to explain what happened.
So your
There's no
frustration
email address,
levels. I mean, I feel anxious just listening to you, and I mean, and how soon did it start having an impact in terms of people perhaps falling for a scheme, thinking it was you, and also perhaps followers falling out thinking that you were no longer on brand for them?
Yeah, we're within 24 hours.
Wow.
Within 24 hours, there was pictures appeared on my account of this new house that I bought somewhere in America, and my Ferrari that I'd purchased with my Bitcoin winnings, or Bitcoin earnings, not winnings. And so literally within 24 hours, I started to have. Fortunately, look, I had 14,000 followers at the time. Obviously, a large portion of those were personal contacts. So immediately I got notified by people who knew me and had my WhatsApp details or my phone details and could contact me personally and say, look, Pete, something is not lacquer on your. We can tell from crazy pictures, but the language is not English. It's pidgin English. It's someone who's typing messages as English as a second language. The grammar is bad. The spelling's a bit dodge. So unless I'm on drugs posting in the middle of the night,
going on. Yeah.
Something's definitely up. And that was it. And the problem with that is not just it happened instantly. It's been ongoing for 18 months.
So it hasn't.
No, it hasn't stopped. Every month or so, I get calls. I get inundated with calls from friends saying, "Is this legit? We've been asked to vote for you online for top Cape Town chef, or new clothing range, or my own bra range." So every couple of months, the hackers kind of reinvent a reason to send out blanket messages on DM to all of the followers to try and get them to join up to whatever bogus scheme they have on that they're working on.
And Pete, as far as you know, has anyone fallen for it? Has anybody been taken for actual money as a result of those scam posts?
Yes, indeed.
Oh dear.
One of the things when they first hacked me, I still had a presence on the Meta Business Suite where you can see different multiple accounts at once and see messages. And I was able to see the messages going out. Eventually, I was blocked because I kept on going on this message and telling everyone it was a scam. But someone, a chef, South African chef who's working in Qatar, he had been caught up in it, and he was already talking to this person about investments. I managed to track down his details, and I FaceTimed him so that he could see it was actually me he was talking to, and he'd already lost 15,000 US. Investing his hard-earned money in Bitcoin schemes.
That's why they do it. It's obviously there were those that will fall.
See, I think this is the problem why they hack people with large followings and celebrities, is that, majority, 90% of the people on my platform follow me through television and through bits and pieces that I do, and therefore, well, if Pete says it's okay, then we'll give it a whirl. Maybe we'll spend a bit of cash, and that's I think. Yes, that endorsement becomes the problem. I mean, one of the things that Con sent out was I was welcoming everyone to the new restaurant that I'd opened. And it actually upset a couple of suppliers that I had, because they said, Con, Pete, we stuck with you, you stuck to us through COVID, we helped each other out. Now we hear you open a new restaurant and we're the last to hear about it. How come we haven't getting a taste of the action? So and it was this profile of this whole restaurant with pictures. It actually turns out it's the restaurant on Wildekrans in Botterfield that the pictures were.
Just
it was
stole
a whole thing about
images.
my new restaurant. Yeah.
And so that's sort of a dent to your reputation, in a sense that some valued suppliers felt that you'd frozen them out for some reason.
Yeah.
But this whole thing has had a very direct financial impact on you. Won't you tell us a little bit about
Oh,
that?
without a doubt, as a, I suppose I hate to say this, as having influencer status, I particularly during lockdown, I did a series of recipes, recipe videos for a number of different brands, food and alcohol, and it's something I used to do on a regular basis, and it's decent money. There are a number of different campaigns out there who want 3 or 4 videos using a variety of different products. And so I was earning decent money out of that. And then that obviously has completely dried up because my numbers don't exist anymore. I've had to restart my my account from scratch. And that takes a long time to get back up to where it used to be.
So can I just do a little punt here, please, on your behalf, Pete, that if you were following the old Pete at Pete GW, which is the account that was hacked, please know that the new real Pete Goffwood is now at Chef Pete GW. Is that the correct one, Pete?
That's the one.
So please go across and join and follow him. Put him back to the 14,000 plus followers he had before and get him back into the circle of acknowledged influencers who deserve our support, because there are
The genuine,
trusted, genuine
yes.
Influencers whose recommendations you can believe in. Pete, I can totally understand. To start from scratch when you've got years invested in the equity of that brand must be a crushing blow, not to mention the financial loss.
Oh, no, without a doubt. I mean, if you consider that kind of profile has been online since I first started doing MasterChef, which was in 2012.
Yeah.
So that's a kind of 12-year investment in garnering
Profile.
followers
Yeah.
and keeping up, relationship with people and sending out regular posts, and endorsements for all manner of things. Some of it is not necessarily have monetary worth, but shoe brands, sunglasses. There's all manner of things that are business of massive business value to me personally.
Yeah.
And your current following number on that new at Chef Pete GW account?
It's about 2,200 and odd, something along those lines.
We're going to make it our mission to get that up.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Pete, before we say goodbye, I mean, knowing what you do know now, do you think you would ever be a potential victim again? What would you do differently? What have you learned from this experience that's wised you up, if I can put it that way?
I think be wary of kind of calls you get or messages you get from social media, particularly things like Messenger and Instagram direct messaging. Generally, if people are in that really want to engage in you, it's very easy to find out what my email address is or my telephone number is. Because I use my Instagram as a business account. It's a business tool. It's not a personal thing that this is what I had for breakfast and this is what I'm doing on the weekend. So you can go into my bio and see my contact details. So if anyone was trying to get hold of me then they would do that through more legitimate channels. And I would say that to everybody is, when you get these crazy messages from some people you don't know, and if it's people you do know, take 10 minutes to just try and reconfirm it. Give someone a shout, send a message back. Or what people started to do with me was, which I got people to do, is when they were contacted by this entity, they send a message back, where do we know each other?
Yeah.
Put paid to a lot of
Ask
people.
for proof.
Because as soon as you just said, "Is this legit?" They said, "Of course it's legit."
Yeah.
But they couldn't then say what the connection between us and the particularly or who the entities were.
And in terms of technical protection, Pete, did you have that double two-factor?
No, I didn't.
You see,
no, I didn't have
so
it.
that's another big one, because they wouldn't have been able to pull that one on you, because what they did is they did it, but with your help, and then you were locked out of your own account.
That's
wicked.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now I have a little authenticator on my phone. So if ever I try and gain access to my own accounts, I have to go onto this little authenticator, and it gives me a 60-second 4-digit password that I must put in myself. And that way, it's impossible to hack into my accounts now.
Well, Pete, thank you for being willing to talk about it. And again, really sorry that you've been through this terrible experience, but let's hope that this interview can at the very least drive a few of the old followers over to the new platform. Again, the real, legitimate, authenticated Pete Goffwood platform on Instagram is now at Chef Pete GW. And if you were following him on the old platform, please move across and follow him there. I'd really love to hope that we can get him restored back to the status of following he had before. Hearing what you've heard about the actual financial impact on him, I hope you understand why that's important. How commonly does this happen in South Africa, though? That's one of the questions we want to put to our next guest. Professor Sylvia Papadopoulos from the University of Pretoria's Private Law Department lectures and publishes widely on cyber law, and was listening into Pete's conversation there. Sylvia, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
And Wendy is here. Wendy, thanks for finding Sylvia for us. I know you'd like to direct
She's
some
a great
questions her
friend.
way.
Hello, Sylvia. Thank you from me too. Shall we start with how deep fake technology is aiding the hackers? Pete didn't mention it in his experience, but I've heard Devi Sankri-Govender talking to Leanne Manus and other local personalities who we see in our Facebook feed, punting as if it's them speaking and punting these various so-called investments. Knowing what I know and being exposed to a lot of this, I can see it, but it's become terribly sophisticated now when you've got sort of someone that you know and follow talking to you in what's very close to their voice. This must have been a huge boon to the hackers and seen many more people fall for these approaches. Am I right?
Yes, you are absolutely right. Deepfake technology started out as rather sketchy kind of technology where you could obviously see the voice and lip movement were not in sync. But that has greatly improved, and now it is, for an untrained eye, very, very difficult to see. I mean, we've seen huge scandals internationally with Taylor Swift used in very compromising kind of material. So the technology has increased significantly, and how it's being used now is they don't even need to hack your account. So these adverts, and we've seen various financial crimes using celebrities as endorsements without even hacking social media accounts. So they're using public appearances, clipping together a couple of pieces of video, and then they are put to use in scamming individuals. Sure. And it's very, very convincing.
And hard to stop, by all accounts.
Very hard to stop. Very hard to stop.
And in Pete's case, sorry, if we could just go to the hacking for a moment. I think anyone with a large social media presence and following is vulnerable to this. What he did admit at the end of our chat, when I asked him about the two-factor authentication, he said no, he didn't have that, and he does now. It was, in his case, even if he had that in place, would there still have been a way that the hacker could have achieved what he did and stealing his accounts and his identity on social media, or is that second step of authentication fail-safe in terms of protecting our accounts?
I wouldn't say it's absolutely fail-safe. And as I say, when I read through the email that you sent me, I had a suspicion that the 2FA was not correctly set up or correctly enabled. In order to use it effectively, you need to have a separate or different form of verification. Something different to your login credentials. So you need a cell phone number. He mentioned that he's now using an authentication app.
Yes.
You get some of those, Microsoft Authenticator is one of the better ones at the moment. Or you need a separate hardware token. So the 2FA is very important, but it's not absolutely fail-safe.
Okay.
The other aspect of it goes to the enforcement and finding a solution.
Yes.
So from that end of things, we have good law. We really do have good law. We have the Protection of Personal Information Act, and we have a very active information regulator. So that would definitely be one way that I would start tackling this. The other piece of law that we have is the Cybercrime Act. It's a fairly new piece of legislation, and Pete's case would have fallen into a number of the cyber crimes that are listed in there. So it should definitely have been reported to the local police. So there's things like unlawful access, unlawful interception, unlawful interference with data, and then the one that is probably most relevant is the unlawful acquisition of passwords or access codes.
Mm-hmm.
And these are crimes that carry a 5 to 10 year prison sentence. But in order for that to be achieved, we needed to go to the police, and obviously there's a lot of skepticism around enforcement there.
Yes.
But it is a start. And the more that these cases go to the police and the more that they have to deal with it, I think the better equipped they will become.
I think it's true.
So
Just assuming that it's going to be a waste of time is not helpful.
To anybody, yes.
Yeah.
It's not helpful at all. No, it's not. And you know, so many people suffer from these digital crimes, these cyber crimes. They don't report it because it's a hassle and they don't think anything's going to come with it. But with that added pressure, I think we will be able to eventually have these things sorted out.
And also just to get some statistics going. You know, it's a country where it's very hard to find statistics that pertain to us. So going to the police, reporting it to the information regulator, we start to get a sense of how widespread it is, and it's sort of forcing the authorities to take a good hard look, because it's not just an isolated case here and there. We now start seeing the numbers coming through. So I think that's really good advice there.
Yes, I think it's crucial that we start getting, you know, that pressure. The only statistics that you are ever able to find are from cybersecurity companies, and they're external.
Yes.
And they're looking at figures like how many attempts of hacking do you get, you know, how many are actually reported, how many do they detect on their systems. And those are not very accurate figures. And I think when you start adding up the sums of money that are lost due to cybercrime, we're going to get a whole different level of pressure.
Sylvia, I mean, what advice for those who are in a position like Pete of having a substantial following, a following that they monetize and use to actually generate or augment their income? They're particularly vulnerable because the side effects of this are not just opening other people up to being scammed themselves, but the loss of, you know, the reputation and the platform itself, which is a business tool to them. Any words of advice for particularly that sort of subset of user?
Yes. You can, you know, if it is financially, if it's part of your financial setup, if you like, you can get control of that old account again. It just means that you have to use an expert, a cybersecurity expert, maybe an attorney, to have that control, you know, just to level up your complaint to where it gets taken seriously, to try and, you know, sort it out yourself, because it's too much hassle or it's going to cost you money, isn't really going to solve the issue. I think we need more enforcement action on a lot of levels, because, you know, when you're dealing with social media, it's a common grievance across the world that social media operate in a country. They earn heaps of money on all of our data, but they do not provide adequate protection or commitment to any country's laws. And they believe that, or they put out there that they are not accountable. They, you know, sort of turn their noses up at you. And that has frustrated many countries. The EU has been very proactive on that. They have vast resources and modern, up-to-date regulations that have dealt with things like jurisdiction issues. So you cannot have a Meta arguing that they are an American company and an EU citizen can't sue them because of jurisdiction issues. So they've, you know, been very proactive in regulation and in enforcement as well, bringing these companies to book. But they also, you know, struggle with all of the sophistication, with all of these things that carry on occurring in different formats.
Yeah, it just seems
So
like
some of your
huge monster sitting somewhere out there far away, and we can't get them to listen to us and take accountability for this sort of for this massive loss that is felt by so many people. One more question, Sylvia. To the rest of us who possibly aren't major celebrities and aren't at huge risk of having our social media account hacked, if indeed we have any, what should alert us if we are consuming content on and following celebrities on social media accounts, given that this technology is improving, and then just even at the level of straight hacking and getting written approaches from people in the celebrity's name? What are some of the things that should alert us to the fact that it's not genuine? And what
I think you've got to have a very street smart attitude towards it. You've got to be very cautious with links and messages, particularly the ones that come directly from social media. So the direct messaging from social media is something we should be very, very cautious about. And then you've got to think about things, would your friend be contacting you with news like this in this way, or wouldn't they rather have sent you a WhatsApp?
Yeah.
Wouldn't they have alerted you to the fact that they're engaging in a new business? Is your friendship on that level? Wouldn't this have been something that popped up at the braai you had last week? So you've got to think very strategically around these. Yes. Preventative measures always. Passwords is a weak point. We are not computers, so we can't remember huge strings of passwords, but we need to. You need strong and unique passwords. You've got to mix your letters, your capitals, your lowercase with numbers and symbols. And we can't use things that are easy to guess, your child's name or your birth date or something like that. You can't use sequential and repetitive numbers or symbols. Those are all very easy for hackers to get hold of. And then you need to use different passwords for each account.
Yeah, that's a big one, and so many people don't.
Yeah, so many people don't. I mean, it's easy to remember if you've come up with a unique, at therock.com as your password, and you use it across the board, and then it gives them access to everything.
Yeah.
Professor Sylvia Papadopoulos, thank you very, very much for that advice and really important tips there that I hope everybody is digesting and taking note of. The professor from the University of Pretoria's Law Department, a specialist in cyber law. Thank you very, very much for joining us this afternoon. Yeah, somebody's saying here, I was caught by a deep fake with Elon Musk being used to advertise a company called BankSo. Lots of other celebrities too, and I lost all my savings after I agreed to trade with the company. Apparently at least 150 others had the same experience. Somebody else saying the easiest way to confirm if a messenger message is legit is to ask the sender to send a voice note. But Wendy, a voice note can be faked these days as well.
Yeah, very easily. And especially if you haven't got the visuals to tie in and look for possible lip sync issues and other things. The voices,
I like your suggestion, Pete's suggestion of tell me how we know each other.
Yes, because that's harder.
That's harder to replicate. Yeah, or a call with visuals that you can actually see.
And nobody should be taking offense at that.
Yes,
just all protect each other and ourselves.
The last angle we wanted to look at the story today is a really interesting one to do with sort of human psychology, because Wendy, you fascinated by the question of whether our own personalities might make us more susceptible or less susceptible to falling for it.
And that is a thing. And Cape Town-based systems analyst Vian Smit recently completed his master's in socio-informatics at Stellenbosch University. In doing so, he interviewed about 700 people around this issue, and he concluded that people with an agreeable personality have a higher chance of being manipulated by cyber criminals to share their private and sensitive information or to fall for whatever scam they're perpetrating, right? And but some of his, and you'd think, well, that makes sense, people who are not too questioning and they're going along and, they're nice and not thinking too critically. But there were some surprises for Vian and certainly for me when I read the results of his study.
We've got him on the line, so let's say good afternoon, Vian Smith. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, guys. Good afternoon, listeners.
Thanks, Vian. So yes, the number one most vulnerable personality type are the agreeable ones. But the second most vulnerable interested me. Won't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the results of my study I got a taxonomy out of the results, and at the top, as you mentioned now, was the agreeable personality type, and then second, we have two personality types. They are known as conscientiousness and extroversion. When it comes to conscientiousness, these are kind of people that are self-controlled, self-disciplined, and respect the rules and procedures. But then extroversion, we kind of know this personality type, most of us. They kind of seek social company, and they exhibit social confident behavior in social settings. So these two are also kind of very interesting compared to the agreeable personality type, but it kind of makes sense in a way, because the agreeable personality type is typically people that care about the quality of relationship, words such as they believe in the goodness of mankind. They kind of behave in a compassionate and cooperative way towards other people. I think these are the traits that make the agreeable personality types more susceptible.
So the nice people.
Here we
the
are
nice,
trying
kind
to put
people.
kindness and goodness into the
Yes.
world, and we're just making
Yes.
suckers of ourselves.
Yeah.
Vian.
Yes,
Oh dear.
exactly.
But what about the extroverts make up, the conscientious people? What makes them vulnerable as well to this social engineering by fraudsters?
Yes, I think when it comes to extroversion, I mean, if you think about an extrovert, they seek that social company. They are kind of outgoing in social settings. They like to talk to people, so they kind of put themselves out there, So this might be in, the social media scenario.
I suppose.
This might be the people that they want to engage.
Want
in
to
the
help.
comments.
Please click
Yes.
on this link for my new restaurant. Of course I
Yes.
will, you my mate. I suppose that does make
Yes,
sense.
exactly. Yes. So they are more inclined to engage in kind of social scenarios in a way, and
Fascinating.
kind of express themselves towards other people in a way.
We're running out of time a little bit, Vian, unfortunately, because your work was so fascinating. But I think the pertinent question for us to get to is, what are these findings? How can they be practically applied? Your conclusion was towards companies in terms of putting resources, focusing on those groups, those personality types, on the staff who would be the most vulnerable to cyber attacks.
Yes, definitely. But I think not just for companies, but I think for everyday individuals. I mean, we all can probably agree that we've come across a social engineering attack in our life, or maybe we've been a victim to a
Sure.
social engineering attack
Many
in our
people.
life. So I think the suggestions that I propose can kind of be applied to every single person's life. If you can maybe do the personality type test to determine which personality type you are, and to kind of know your individual social engineering susceptibility level, that will kind of show yourself that, hey, I might need to be more aware for social engineering attacks when I'm online, or when I am on social media, or when I get a direct message on a social media platform, to kind of be aware and know that you might be the person that's most likely to be a social engineering victim.
Vian Smith, thanks for the heads up. As somebody who falls into one of those categories, I do appreciate the warning to be that much more aware. Vian is a Cape Town-based system analyst, talking there about his research towards his master's in socio-informatics at Stellenbosch University. Wendy, I hate to say it, but the takeaway advice today is be skeptical of everybody approaching you on social media, isn't it?
That's what I'm saying, and I always feel awful saying it because, trust nobody, check everything, and it sounds a very unkind, suspicious, neurotic way to live, but unfortunately, it's the way we have to be to protect ourselves.
Lunch with Pippa Hudson
on Cape Talk.